Hello guys, what is going on? Starting my EmberGen stream here. I'm trying to find out where my link is. Here it is. Posting it on our Discord real quick. Let's see here. Just a couple of link spam. All right, there we go. So hopefully we can get this show on the road and show off what's going on. So how's everybody doing today? We got 5 viewers now. All right. So we've launched EmberGen. EmberGen is launched. We sent out an email last night to all of our alpha subscribers. So if you haven't received your email, let us know and we'll send you a build. So what I'm going to do is, people have some questions about how to use the software and what it does and all that kind of stuff. So we're just going to kind of go through, make some cool things, and hopefully you can kind of get a feel for how the software works, and we can kind of go from there. So the first thing I'll do is I'm going to just kind of go through some of our presets and just kind of explain them a bit one by one. So first off, what we have is, here we go, restart it again. Okay, so what we have is we got like a little cartoon explosion here, and with this essentially we have a particle system that is spawning some fuel and density and things like that for the smoke. So if we go over here to the emitter node, we can see that this right here is set to particle system, and we're just using a velocity range. So you can set different speed types, so a cone or from the position or whatever, and you can kind of tune your particles parameters. And so that's what's giving it this motion. One quick thing we could do is we could change the count, so we can lower the amount of particles in this. We can change the seed to change where the particles are going. You know, we could set this to a velocity cone instead and change our cone spread amount so that we have particles that are just going up. You know, we could increase the particle lifetime so that they last longer. And so that just kind of shows how things work in the software. And the reason why things are restarting so quick is because we are pressing R, or I am constantly pressing R on my keyboard. All right, so a couple of comments real quick in the chat. Let me open up a new one here while we read. All right, so congratulations. Thank you. More congratulations. Awesome. How to integrate this with a live action plate. Personally, I do VFX for games, so I am not sure what a live action plate means. I guess the closest thing that I can answer for you is we will have a way to export singular image sequences, and you can take that image sequence and put that image sequence inside of, you know, After Effects or whatever, and composite it where you need to composite it. That's probably the closest answer I can give you. If you have more examples of what you mean, there's that. But other than that, that's about the extent of what I can tell you. So yeah, we need help integrating stuff for film. Since right this second, most of this is for games. And then on the games front, if you wanted to generate a flipbook for this, we can go into our preview over here, and we can reposition this with the right mouse button, and we'll leave it about there. We got some hitting of the edges right there. But from here, what we can do then is we can go to our flipbook, and we go to the capture node, and we've got a bunch of different parameters that we can tune for all of these different previews that we see here. So if we go to, say, our motion vector, we can see that there's this MV radius. So we can, you know, change the blur on that to get, you know, finer or less fine details. that kind of thing. And of course, our preview will preview all this stuff. And then if we wanted to generate this, which if you want to save the flipbooks that you're generating, you have to have a license at this time. We will have a beta version of the software out in the future, maybe a couple months from now. And with that, you'll be able to export licenses at no cost to you for like 2 weeks or something like that for a free trial. But anyway, so what we'll do is we'll just generate our flipbook here. And let's see if it's going to work, which it might not. Let's see. Trying to find out what's going on here. Let's see, capture. Okay, it's generating now. And so you can see that it generates your flipbook pretty quickly. My guess is that I didn't pause the sim and then generate, and that's why I did this. So either way, that's a quick version on how you do that. And if you have a license, you can just save your flipbook. You can see I've got a bunch of different flipbooks rendered out here, which these come with the software so that you can preview all the different channels and things like that. I believe it's whenever you download the installer zip, there's a folder in there. It might be called like flipbook examples or something like that. And you click it and you can preview all of these different examples. So we could just go over here and we could say test or something like that, save our PNG. And if I go over here to my EmberGen folder, and we'll scroll down, we'll see test. And so here is my test render. It's going to look like crap because Windows previews the alpha with like a masked view or something like that. But you can, view it a lot better in Photoshop or Unreal or something like that. So from here, we're going to keep on moving down the line of presets. So we've got an emissive scattering preset. And essentially what this emissive scattering is doing is it dictates how much light is propagating from emissive materials and things like that within the simulation. So in this case, we'll also see that the torus has stopped. You can check this loop button down here. So pretty much for everything, you always want looping checked just so that things keep moving. So with this, what we'll do is if we wanted to change our emissive scattering, so that's all this demo is really good for. And so from here, we'll go to our visualization node right here. And then we've got a parameter called scattering intensity. And this is where you can change how much light is actually scattering. And it's also dependent on your black body intensity. So the more black body intensity you have, the more intense the lighting is going to be. It's also dictated by your temperature and things like that. So we have a reference temperature, and then we have max temperature so that you can clamp your temperature so that you don't get blue values like this if that's something that you're not looking for. But if you were doing something that's like extremely hot, then this is probably what you want. But in most cases, that's probably not the case. So that really is emissive scattering and shows how it works and all that stuff. Andre, hope I'm saying your name right. Currently, we can only save PNGs. We will have support for TIFF, TGA, probably maybe like BMP, probably JPEG, things like that. And so just right this second, just PNG, but we'll have like 16-bit exports and EXR and things like that in the future as the closer we get to beta and things like that. Hopefully that answers your question. All right, so the next preset, we got an explosion simple here. And we can see just a very simple fireball. This right here would probably be a decent explosion for a game or something like that. We can go over to our flipbook and let's say that we wanted to line this up and capture it for our flipbook. We can go to our preview once again and we'll view it here, and we can just kind of pause it at the end to see where the edges of this sim are going to line up. So we can zoom in with our middle mouse button scroll wheel, sorry. And then we can see that we've got our edges kind of lined up. It's kind of hard to see. And so we'll resend this again. And we'll go here. And you can kind of tell that like this, it doesn't look terribly good. And that's just because our alpha inside of our preview is kind of weird. But if you view something like the emissive channel, you can tell that it's properly clamped and things like that. So it does look pretty good. And we can view that here and preview that channel. And then if we wanted to preview our motion vectors or temperature, you know, our smoke, our flames, whatever, which flames and albedo and smoke, they are kind of funky right now. They're not really like exporting color or anything. But like our emissive's good, you know, our normal maps are good. We've got our alpha channel depth. And then if you'd like to do things like 6-point lighting, so these days people are starting to do 2D ray marching through volume. So we have an automatic light rig. So you can see that no matter where I move in this particular preview window, our light rig is following the camera so that you get perfect lighting from all the angles that you need. So it's top, bottom, and maybe front, and then say right, left, and back or something like that. I don't know the specifics of which one is which, but we do offer all 6 lighting directions so that you can do your 6-point light exports. And so if you're on the real-time VFX forum, there's a thread on there talking about 6-point lighting, and you can find more information there. And we'll also release a shader that helps you integrate this kind of stuff into Unreal, and we'll also have something for Unity in the future. So from there, what we can do is, like, let's say that we wanted to export just a couple of channels from this. And so, of course, once again, you need a license to do this in the alpha version. Just clarifying for for the new viewers on here. And so with this, what we can do is, let's say that we want to do our render, we want to do our emissive channel, and then maybe we want to export our 6-point lighting. We're not going to do normal since we don't need that. Maybe we'll even do motion vectors as well. And if we go here and we preview this, we can see that it starts about frame 44 is what we're on right now. So I paused it. So we're going to start over here on frame 44. And we can see that it's only going to produce 42 frames and that there's 22 slots missing in the flipbook. So what we can do is just increase this until it says a number over 64. And now we can see that our textile coverage is 100%. And then from here, let's just preview this one more time to make sure that everything is good. All right. And so maybe we move this over to the right, maybe zoom in just a little bit. And I think that's good. So now we're going to go ahead and generate our flipbook, and for some reason it likes to skip a whole loop. I'm not sure what's up with that. Maybe I have a setting set up somewhere. And so it's taking a little bit longer than just a typical render because we're simulating our render, motion vector, emissive, and 2 different 6-point lighting textures at the same time. And so that's why it's taking a while like this. And so we'll just wait for it for just a second. But this is much faster than the other tools that you can get out there. So this is a breath of fresh air. And so we'll just wait for this. And we'll see here. Which I wonder if I can click generating flipbook, which it might stop the software, so I'm not going to do that. Because one thing that happens is if you click generating flipbook while it's generating and then you try and clear the flipbook and things like that, it is possible that it would stop the UI from working. So sorry if there was any lag there. that takes up a lot of GPU power. So now we've got our flipbooks, and we just added a new update today. So we released the software yesterday. We added a new update already. And if you want to update to view this texture viewer, it might say update software over here. And with that, you will see that you can click it, software will restart, and then update. So with this, we've got a new texture picker thing. And so we can see my 6 points 2, 6 points 1, my emissive channel, my motion vector, things like that. EmberGen is only for volumetric fluid simulations, meaning, gaseous explosions, fires, smoke, etc. If you get our suite that we have, what we'll do is we will release a liquid tool in the future. So EmberGen is not for liquids, it's just for gaseous fluids. So hopefully that answers your question, Ben. Sorry if we disappointed you in thinking that we're like RealFlow or something, but we are not at this time. But we do have plans for a liquid tool, and if you get our suite, we will release the liquid tool in the future with the suite. So yeah, but I don't have a date on the liquid tool. Sometime in the future after EmberGen is out of beta and production ready. But yeah, so no liquids planned at this time for EmberGen. Hopefully that answers your question. So yeah, so we've got all of our little flipbooks here, and then we could go ahead and save the flipbooks and export that and whatnot. So the next preset, we've got a really cool one. This is a higher resolution mid-air explosion. And so with this, there's a couple errors that we can see, which I think I've mentioned on some past streams and videos and stuff like that. But you can see some banding errors. And if you are so inclined, which this will reduce your performance, but what you can do is you can turn on tricubic remarching, and it'll go ahead and smooth out all those bands. One downside of that is you might say, hey, well, I just lost a bunch of detail in my simulation. Technically, this isn't detail, all these little bands, but it's kind of pixely, and it makes it look like there's more to the fire than there is. And so you can use that to your advantage. And so within that, what we've got, which our office dog is coming in. Go lay down. All right. Anyway, yeah, Sue Bear is our dog. She's coming in. Hang on one second, guys. Lay down. All right. Good girl. All right. I'm back. So from here, we've got a tricubic intensity slider. And so what this does is it also can control the amount of banding you're reducing. So if you want to keep some of those, banding details, even though it's a rendering artifact, you can use this tricubic slider right here and kind of blend between what you think is acceptable. And that's how you can kind of fix some of those banding issues. So from here, what we've got is, of course, particles that are emitting a bunch of fuel. And one thing that you'll notice, which we need to fix, is you can see that this is like hollow. So all of these little things are hollow that are coming out. And so we do need to fix that. If we increased our temperature, so I don't know if it's on the timeline down here, but let's see. So if we increased our temperature strength, and I do something like this, then you can see that the things are no longer hollow. But then the problem with this is, since we don't have color gradients yet, we've got just really, really bright stuff over here, and that's not particularly what we want. So yeah. Can you pet the dog? Yes, you can pet the dog. I pet the dog this morning. Yes, you can pet the dog. But maybe one day we'll do a 3D scan of the dog and put her in here and use her as an emitter. That'd be terrible. We'll get a call from PETA real quick. So then from here, what we can do is, so that there is just a quick aerial explosion. We've got another variation that is explosion plane crash. And in this case, it's more along the ground, and the streamers are a little bit longer and things like that. And so that's kind of this. And then, of course, down here, we've got our timeline. We've got a bunch of different stuff that's animating. So we are animating, which I don't think we're animating the radius of anything that is showing. You can see that the step isn't actually moving, and that's because it's actually using a sphere. So if we went over here and, oh, nope, not that. If I chose sphere, I'm pretty sure, yeah, so we can see that a sphere will kind of spawn or whatever. And so I can come over here and remove that, and then go back to our particle system, and then I'll remove that from the timeline. So with that is just our quick little airplane crash explosion. Imagine an airplane hitting the ground. That is what I would imagine a explosion will look like. And with this, you can kind of tweak some different things. So, of course, like I showed earlier with our particle systems, if you wanted to change the count, so this right here is just 3 particles. You can see that the simulation is running much faster now. So that's with 3 particles. We could even do 64. Our max at this time is 64, just because it's a lot of stuff for the GPU to, tongue twisted, to compute. And with that, this is kind of the frame rate at which we wouldn't really want to go under. And then if you pause it, it goes back up to 60 FPS. So yeah, which it looks like I'm getting around 20 frames a second, 18 frames a second, something like that on my GTX 1080. And then of course, you go in here, preview your flipbook, line it up, get it just right, and then export your stuff. And of course, we can view our motion vectors and things like that. And then like, let's say that, just for instance, this right here is a really nice emissive channel on this particular flipbook. So like, let's say that we wanted to multiply our emissive. You don't have to go into something like After Effects and multiply your emissive channel. You can just come right here into the tool and do that. And then if for some reason you don't like the way that we tone map our images to compress HDR to LDR, so this is actually a HDR viewport. And so we have different tone mapping methods under visualization. So we've got, whatever this is, Hedgel, I'm probably butchering that, Reinhard, Hable, all that stuff. And so you can choose your HDR tone mapping method, and then you can choose whether or not you want to use that tone mapping in your export. And so from there, so yeah, you've got that kind of thing. And then basically for each thing where it says, say, flames, we've got our different ranges and things like that, where you can kind of pick and choose, which the flame stuff is broken right this second. Andre, you said, does it export a image sequence? I take it you mean not a flipbook. So, frame 1, frame 2, frame 3, frame 4, all that stuff. Is that what you're trying to say? The answer to that right this second is no. However, it is on the top of our list to add that, because we do have people who are in film, or people who just want to do their own flipbooks or something like that. Maybe they have their own sequencing or whatever they want to do. So we will have individual frame exports as soon as we can possibly make it. So that is coming soon. Just patience. Coming soon, indeed. So yeah, from here we've also got 6-point light stuff. And then one cool thing is, I'm not sure if you guys are very familiar with depth, but there are ways that you can use depth maps in games and probably film as well. And so you can render the depth based on the camera. And over here we've got some sliders so that you can kind of pick and choose what your min and max depth is and things like that. And then if you use this in like Unreal for a cinematic, you can make it look like the sprite is going, through different meshes and around meshes and things like that, without it actually doing that. So it's a cheap way to get some cool cinematics, and we'll release shaders for this kind of thing too. So next thing, let's see. Looks like we've got a fire. And so with this fire, it's the reason why there is no smoke on this particular one is because we aren't saving we're not rendering our smoke. So you can turn smoke on and off. And in the future, we'll have ways to kind of remove this sphere and things like that. And you'll also notice that fire is only coming from the outside of the sphere. And we'll also have ways to fill the inside of this with fuel and things like that as well. So with that, that's kind of the basics of our fire that we've got here. We've got some bloom that you can change. So if you want some, nicer bloom and whatnot, you can change that. One thing I don't know if the bloom actually exports just yet. It might. We can go ahead and just do a quick capture. I'll turn all these other things off. And so let's go ahead and just do a quick capture here, which I am bewildered at why it doesn't. Which looks like we would need to do our what do you call it? Our emissive channel. Because right this second, our renders for things like flames, they're not the best. So if we did our actual emissive channel, so let's go over here, let's say emissive, and we should get something a lot prettier out of this one. And so, but for some reason, my renderer isn't going until the second time around, which here we go. There's my emissive channel now. So now you can see that we've got some prettier stuff. We'll have to look into the debug real quick. Hang on, let me see something. I'm on stream, but I'm gonna debug something real quick. So we go to our flipbook. Let's go ahead and clear this flipbook. And then let's just go to our render. And I'm gonna say frame 0, skip 1 frame. And I went ahead and checked this reset with looping thing. So let's do that. And then generate flipbook. Okay, so it does appear to be generating the flipbook. There we go, final render. All right, cool. All right, so nothing's broken, I don't think. All right, so yeah, so that's our quick little demonstration of some fire. And of course, the cool thing with EmberGen, if you guys haven't played with it yet, is everything is real time. Everything can be changed on the fly. So you can see that we expanded and got some more fuel. Now we have a raging fire, and we can turn off this loop over here to get a continuous fire. And then you can also do things like vector field injection. So we can go over here to open file. Let me go to vector regen. I'm gonna just choose a curl noise field that I generated. And so we can come over here and do something a lot smaller. And so now we have something like that. And you can see that it's drastically changing the way that the fire was interacting. And then if we wanted to animate this a little bit, we can add the vector field rotation to the timeline down here. And so we can say, let's make this like positive 180 and this negative 180. And so now we have the vector field kind of spinning around. In terms of a perfect loop right this second, we do not have that ability, but it is very high on our list as well. We do want to allow you to do both actual looping through the flipbook itself. So we'll have a generator that lets you do that, to do looping within the flipbook. Then we'll also have a node. So if we hit F8 in the build, you can go to the new node graph that we're going to have. And then over here, we've got like our simulation and things like that. And then we'll have like our volume. And then somewhere from here, you would place in maybe after the volume or something like that, loop or something. And then from there, it would be able to loop the simulation automatically with some parameters you specify, like a range, and it'll figure out how to loop that for you. So yeah, that is, it is planned, but right this second, still in alpha, don't have looping. But if we add image sequences first, you can always export those singular images to something like After Effects and loop it in the meantime until we get the actual looping functionality in the software. But it is planned, and it will be automatic, and you won't have to fiddle around with it in other programs. We want EmberGen to be something so that, no matter what it is you're trying to do, whether it's post-processing with the flipbook or, trying to get things to loop or whatever, you can do that inside the software and then export that. So it's coming soon enough. All right, I'm going to move on to the next thing, which actually let me go back to EmberGen. Let's see, data, EmberGen, presets, and let's go to Fire 02 and see what's different about this one. Oh yeah, so this right here is a little bit of a different fire. Basically the same thing as the previous one, just not as bright, a little bit more see-through. We've got some more banding issues and this kind of thing. And then once again, if you have just joined us, if you want to reduce banding in your simulations, you can turn on this tricubic ray marching option, which will slow down your render. And then you have a slider to adjust how much tricubic ray marching or blur that you want to add to the actual simulation. And then, of course, you typically want this loop button checked to see the continuous loop of the fire and whatnot. And so, yeah. So we've got something like that. And of course, we can always come in here and make the forces greater and things like that. So we can change that. We can also change this to, say, centrifugal. to a centrifugal force. And then maybe we want to increase the buoyancy of this. So maybe we'll do 10. And so one of the cool things about our UI is if you want to override a parameter, most of the time you can. We have some artificial limits coded in just sporadically, so you don't know which one you can go over in particular. But like, let's say like with oxygen, it's a slider if you just click and drag. And then if you just single click it, you can, override your values, which apparently oxygen won't let you override values, but you can do that kind of thing. Anton says, does the program support SLI with 2 video cards? Not at this time. We do want to do research into SLI. It is not an easy thing to do since we deal with just so much data. You don't have a debug node or a profiling node in your particular build, but since this is my developer build, I have this. And we can see that we are streaming, I don't know, let's just say 400 or 500 gigabytes of data. And putting that between every single frame between multiple graphics cards is very difficult. The good news for you is you probably don't need 2 graphics cards. Right now I'm running this on a GTX 1080, and I think it runs pretty well. I mean, I'm getting 38 frames per second on this particular one. The higher your resolution, the slower it's going to be. But we have one developer on our team that has a GTX 2080 Ti, RTX 2080 Ti, and that card just dominates the program. I mean, it is ridiculous how fast the software runs on an RTX card. So yeah, definitely, we do want to support SLI in the future, but I don't know when, and it would take a lot of research on our end. All right. And so let's move on away from fire. I'm going to skip the fire shapes one too, and we'll just go to this fire smoke column. And so with this particular thing, this right here was more of like a emissive scattering test. And so with this, we can go to our visualization, and where is it at? Scattering intensity. So we can change our scattering intensity again. And then let's say, if we wanted to edit this just real quick, so I'll show you how you can take a preset and make something else out of it. So with this, we've got this little thing that's looping, and we've just got a quick little thing that's, creating a cool little plume of fire and smoke or whatever. And so if we wanted to make this explode, what we can do is we go to our emitter, and we can see that our radius is already down here on the timeline. And so with this, what we can do is we'll go ahead and say, okay, on the very first frame, let's go to 0. And then sometime, say frame 5, we want to expand to maybe 260. And then we want to immediately go back down to 0. So then we have a little burst. And so that's the first part of how you kind of create an explosion. But then we can also increase, say, our force strength to force the explosion upwards more. And then you can also change this as, let's say that we wanted a centrifugal force at first to kind of blow these, the flames and stuff outwards. And then we want to push them upwards. So what we can do is we can add this to the timeline by double-clicking the 0 twice. And it says 2. And of course, these will be prettier icons in the future as we get closer to our beta and our production-ready release. But essentially, we're going to go here. We're going to change our force type. It looks like it already had some stuff saved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to centrifugal. So at first, we've got a nice centrifugal burst. And then maybe right over here, we want to do a directional burst. And so then you can see that it kind of pushes that upwards. And we could also extend the lifetime of this emitter to get more out of it. And so you can see that we've got something like that. And then from here, what we could do is we could kind of pause this. So the cool thing also is, since it's rendering in real time, we can pause this and kind of start fiddling with, how this looks. So we can say, okay, let's go through here. Maybe we want to lower our scattering intensity just a little bit because it's a bit on the intense side. And then maybe we want to increase our reference temperature. So one thing that we found is by having a clamp but increasing our reference temperature, we can get more fire out of the simulation. And so we can see there that we've got something like that. And then over here in our actual sim, we can change some things. So we could reduce the rate of cooling of the smoke. We could reduce the rate of cooling in the flames, so we get some brighter flames and it burns longer. We could also reduce the amount of oxygen in the fuel so that it doesn't burn as fast, and you've got things kind of like that. We could also lower our ignition temp. We can lower the temperature gain. We can come in here. We could also make it expand. So we do have expansion of gases, which it's kind of funky right this second. And then we also have like fuel loss. So we can make it burn less fuel. And we'll change a lot of these parameters names in the future so that, fuel loss is maybe, burn rate and things like that. We are working on the combustion system again to really make this a whole lot better. So, yeah. So from here, that's just a quick example of how you can kind of make a cool little explosion. You can see that we are hitting the bounds over here. So what we could do is just, say go 256 cubed or something like that. And then, which you might want to do 384. And so now we're not hitting the bounds as much. And then in this case, it's actually running a little bit slower. But if you wanted to, say, mask your bounds, if you go to the simulation, we have a mask shape, and you can change the mask intensity. And so then, what you want to be careful with it. So let's see, let's reduce our mask distance. We might need to move our emitter up just a little bit. All right, come on. There we go. Which our mask seems to be kind of funky. So we'll have to look into that. Maybe it's because my mask distance is 0. Okay, yeah, that works a little bit better. So then when you can change like the mask intensity and things like that, you don't have to use a sphere. You can use a box as well. And we can increase that intensity and it'll kind of fade out the edges a little bit, which it appears to be more of a hard fade. And that might just be due to our distance that we have. Yeah, so it fades out a little bit, but we'll have better ways to blend our volumes and things like that once we have our node graph. So you'll be able to cache a volume, use that as a mask and things like that to really give you some much better masking of your edges so that you don't hit the bounds. And we'll also have automatic expanding bounds and things like that in the future as well. So let's go ahead and open up our fire tornado. So I've shown this demo a couple times in the past. The way that this is working is within our other software, EmberGen, which if you get the suite, within our other software, EmberGen, if you get the suite, you get access to our vector field generation tool, which gives you, procedural tools for generating vector fields. And in this case, we're using the vector field as velocity injection. So, I can increase or decrease the vector field strength and things like that. We can come in here and we can say, okay, this looks nice, but then you can move the position and things like that. So, and we'll also have like a vector field previewer and things like that. So yeah. Someone said top is slice. I'm not sure what you mean, Leo, assuming that's how you say your name. I don't know what you mean by top is slice. If what you're saying is can you slice the volume, I'm not sure at this. Sorry, it's not that I'm not sure. It's that we don't have it yet. Yeah, so we don't have slicing volumes yet. We will have that in the future so that you can slice through volumes and debug it and preview things and whatnot, assuming that that's what you're asking. And so this right here is one of my favorite fireballs. This is probably one of my favorite presets because it just looks so damn good. And so in this case, we've got just simple stuff. The main reason why this looks good is we have our a low maximum temperature clamp, and then we've got our reference temperature pretty high. So if we did it at a lower rate, this is what we'll see, and that doesn't really look good. But as you increase your reference temperature, you get more and more fire. So we can boost this all the way up to like 20,000. And you can see it's like the maximum amount of fire, so it extends all the way into the temperature ranges to get what you need. So yeah, you've got a lot of power with this. And then of course, in the future, we're going to have a color gradient editor, which you can't see this particular node in your current builds that you guys have. But we will have like a color graph editor. It's going to have, you know, gradients and things like that. And also if I go over here, and then, so I pressed F8 to get to this, you can kind of preview our color gradient. So you'll be able to come in and like, let's say, okay, we want like a really light yellow, and then we want to go here and we want to do some orange and things like that. And we can kind of pick our colors and whatnot. So yeah, this kind of thing is coming, but it's going to take some time. All right, so wow, I really like the contrast between the large flames and the other ones around the torus. Thank you. How did you make the smoke in this one darker? How would you? All right, yeah, so if you wanted to make the smoke in this darker, you go to the visualization tab. And so we have a couple of ways to do this. And so one thing we can do is we can turn off our flames, and we can also turn off our scattering so that we can focus just on the smoke in this particular case. And so here we go, we've got a nice batch of smoke, a nice volume here. And so what we can do is there's a couple ways. All right, so first off, we've got different shadowing in light reactions that we have. So you can change the amount of shadowing that you have on the volume, which, you know, says how thick the volume is. You can change the volume color, things like that. You can lower your quadratic fall off and your linear attenuation, things like that. If you don't want to do it from a lighting side and you want to actually change the color here, right this second, the only thing we have is we have a dense color and we have a thin color. So see right here, we can see our dense color changes there. And so if we wanted to make this darker, we could go say 0.05 all the way throughout, and it's going to be a much darker thing. And we can lower this to like 0.01 to get the thin edges down to something darker as well. And now if we resim this, we can see that it's quite a dark smoke cloud. And we can come back and bring our flames back. And you can see that it's quite interesting without the scattering. And then once we add the scattering back in, so we can go here, pause it, and increase the scattering amount to get some nice illumination within the smoke. So hopefully that answers your question of how do you make the smoke darker. So you want to use this dense color and thin color options. And you just lower that. And we'll have color pickers in the future to make this a whole lot easier. So from here, let's go to our next fireball. So this one's a little bit different. It just has a little bit different temperature options, a little bit different burn rates and things like that. Just a little bit of a different variation, and that's kind of all that's going on here. And so we'll go to our delayed ignition, and we'll go to our ray tracer. And so here, what you can see is a huge fireball that is delayed in ignition, and it's called delayed ignition because it takes a while for the fuel to ignite. And how we did that was we have, which I believe, yeah, so if you hold down 2 on your keyboard, I'm pretty sure that this is the fuel view. So if you hold down 2 on your keyboard, you can view the fuel. You can see that we're launching the fuel upwards, and then we are igniting it. So we have a couple different preview modes. I don't know by heart which ones all of them are, and hopefully up here we should be able to say what debug view you're in. So yeah, so what we're doing is we are launching the fuel, and then we ignite it over time by increasing the temperature strength at, it looks like frame 60. Tim says, looks great. Will we be able to use this directly in UE4 without exporting flipbooks in the not so distant future? That would be awesome. We do have plans for supporting direct volumes that are animated to Sorry, I was reading the other comment that popped up. Oh, that's from Martin from Vastvik. All right, so yeah, going back to your question about Unreal Engine 4, we do have planned to support animated volumes in both Unreal Engine and Unity. That will take a lot of time and a lot of research. We don't know when that will happen, and don't expect anything real time in the next year or so, or probably 2. We need more graphics card generations for that to happen, because this is pretty heavy. So yeah. So hopefully that answers your question there about the exporting of this directly to Unreal. So the answer is yes, but a while from now. We don't know when. All right, so let's move on to the next thing. So we've got a fireball moving, which this is my favorite preset that we have, which in this case, this is not useful for games whatsoever, but it just shows the power of EmberGen in general. So we've got an emitter. It's animated through our timeline here. I keyframed all the animations by hand, and then with this, it's just looping. And so we've got our little fireball. It's moving, and the fluids within this are inheriting velocity from the fireball itself. So what we can do is we can go over here to our emitter, and we can say change the force inherited to like 8. And you'll see that it's really going to push those flames out. And you can also do negative inheritance so that it's more like a rocket motor and it's shooting fire backwards, which looks really weird. So I found that like 2 or something like that is about the sweet spot for this particular simulation. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And then of course you can come over here, change like your smoke strength, and we can go here to our simulation, and we could change like our visualization. We could change our density clamp over here to get lighter smoke and things like that. So which our smoke density scale doesn't appear to work right this second. We should fix that. All right, a couple people, man, this thing looks awesome. Looks incredible, looks so good. Will you be adding a curve editor for key edit so we have more control over easing? Yes, we do have plans to extend this timeline greatly. We will have a lot of new functionality for the timeline in the future. Right this second, just trying to do keyframes to keep it simple, but we'll do some cool stuff in the future with the timeline, most definitely. Still impressed how the detail smoke gets even at that resolution. Yeah, I mean, you don't need much resolution for high detail. It's pretty surprising, which if I check here, looks like we are at 384 by 192 by 192 is our actual resolution. So it's quite small, but you don't need a whole lot of resolution, surprisingly. Let's go ahead and open up another one. So we're moving along. Let's see, lightning. This one right here is some straight trickery. It is not lightning, if you can't tell. What it actually is it's just me changing the reference temperature with some keyframes to turn the fire on and off, essentially. And so with this, it's pretty interesting. It's something that I came up with. I wanted something that was like a storm cloud, and I bet if you exported this to a game, it'd be pretty cool. Especially at like this state as it's moving up, you could have like some storm clouds or something. So definitely another favorite of mine because it's using combustion in a way that it is not supposed to be used, but you can get some pretty cool stuff out of it. So on to the next one. Oh, before I move on to the next one, you might wonder, how on earth did we get blue fire? So if you go over here to the visualization tab, we have a channel swizzling option. And so you'll see that after we swizzle our channels, you can change the color of the fire. So let's pause it at some fire. So we got some here. So you can go, RBG, GRB, BRG, BGR, that kind of thing. And so you can switch between, all of your different modes for channel swizzling. And in the future, we'll have some different nodes and stuff like that to channel specific things so that maybe you're swizzling one volume, but not another, and that sort of thing. So we'll go ahead and open up something else. It's actually, could it be possible to slow down the speed that the smoke is going up and dissipating? It is possible to slow down the speed. With that, you would probably want to change the force strength right here. And then, yeah, so a lot slower speed. And then if you wanted to change your dissipation, you can go over here to smoke dissipation and lower that. But at that point, once you start playing with the smoke dissipation, it's going to change the way that the volume is actually interacting. So now you can see that it just kind of gets stuck. So it's really difficult to make it any more slower, if that makes sense. So from here, we'll go ahead. We'll go ahead and opening up another one. So this right here is a poison shockwave that we have. I just call it poison shockwave because it's some green smoke. Makes me think of a poison cloud. And of course our colors were changed over here in our dense color. If we wanted to make it say more green or something like that, we could. If we wanted to make it more yellow, we could do that. Maybe an orange burst or something. And then of course you could go through, and if we wanted to generate a flipbook of this, we can go down to our capture node. We can go ahead and start from the beginning. And so let's do that, generate flipbook. And here we go. Our flipbook is rendering and we've got something kind of nice. So Jan, in terms of the alpha, with the viewport, right this second, we've got some funky things going on with combustion and the actual flame. We're going to look into that. It's something weird that's happening. I don't think that it's correct. But in the meantime, if you've purchased a license and you do want to export this stuff, you can use the emissive channel to boost your alpha back. And you can also export, some other stuff. Yeah. And so on bright, fiery sims, definitely probably want to use the emissive channel. So if we go over here, I'll go back to our emissive channel, back to like our fire examples. Let's choose this Fire 02. And we'll go here. I'll go to preview. And so you can see that the preview is quite weird. We should fix this soon. But from here, what we can do is we can preview the emissive, and you can see that the emissive is much brighter, and it's probably what you would want to use in your game. And then within the capture node over here, you can change your emissive multiplier to change how bright this is. So we can go up to say like 5 or 15 or whatever to get some really bright blown out colors if that's what you're looking for. So yeah, and then it looks like, yeah, which I think inside of our thing over here, we might be showing smoke. I'm not sure, or it might be showing emissive scattering or something like that. And you can kind of change that and fix that as well and remove it. So yeah, if we remove emissive scattering, it'll be a lot cleaner over here. So yeah, definitely some inconsistencies within the flipbooks, but we're working on it. Still in alpha. All right, so we did our poison shockwave. Here is another little example that I got. This is a bit different. In this case, we've got a sand impact. This could be like a small firecracker in the sand, or it could be something like a bullet impact. Maybe if it was a bullet impact, you'd want the speed to be a lot higher. So in this case, if we went to the emitter, we've got our particle system selected. And what we can do is we could change our speed. Are we on it? Sorry. All right. So what we could do is we could change our speed to be, say, 15 or something like that. And then we could also change our life to be like, I don't know, maybe 1. And you can get something a lot better. We could even do, say, a speed of 35. And then over here, we could go, say, 5, -5, maybe 5. So something like that. you get a much higher velocity simulation. Maybe we could do like 0.3. So boom, got a quick burst. And then if we wanted to control this a bit easier, what you can do is you can change this to velocity cone. Just set your maximum speed. So we'll say 35. We want our min speed to be like 3 or something. And then you can just change your cone spreading angle. And then you can get some cool little bursts. And so one of the cool things about this as well is with this, one thing is you could switch between sand and say fire or something like that pretty quickly. So if we go to our visualization tab, we can increase our fire burning ratio, and we could increase our black body intensity, and we could change our thing to be like 0.2, 0.2, 0.2, 0.2, 0.2 for dense and thin color. That's probably too dark. Yeah, let's go back up like 0.5 or something. So now we have some quick little fiery stuff, but then we're not having much buoyancy. So we could go over to our simulation, smoke buoyancy, increase that. We could even do something like 10. And so now we've got something like that, which it might be a bit hard to see because the smoke isn't very thick. So one thing we can do as well is change our smoke density. We can go here, change our smoke tightness, and looking for our smoke strength, which it appears that our smoke is pretty thick in this case, which is kind of odd because it doesn't look very thick. Maybe we have a high dissipation rate or something. And it's also just kind of hard to see because it's so dark. So we could do something like this, make it a bit brighter. And now it's starting to look more like a stylized explosion. Hello, Joan. Hopefully that's how you say your name. I'm a phonetic pronouncer. Yeah, happy release. Yeah, I'm very happy that we've launched. We've had some pretty good pre-orders and a lot of support from the community and 26 viewers right now. So we're happy. We're doing good. we're doing pretty good. I'm pretty satisfied. So we'll go ahead and open up another one. We're running out of presets here. This right here is Sand Tornado. Once again, this particular vector field was generated with our other software, EmberGen, which if you buy our suite, you can get both EmberGen and VectorAgen in the same package, and import vector fields for you to use as velocity injection and things like that. So with this, it's cool. Of course, with EmberGen, everything is completely real time, so we could change like our smoke weight to make things kind of fall down a little bit after they interact with the volumetric, with the vector field. And so you can get some pretty cool stuff going on. This is a pretty cool sim of mine, which in this case, I don't really think this would be useful for flipbooks and games, but maybe if you want to do a distant tornado or something, maybe you could use vector fields for that, for film or something. And then, of course, if you wanted to export this as a volume to another software once we get that ready, you could do that. We go to our sky cloud. So this right here is a bit different. This right here is supposed to just simulate like a, what would you call it, like a cumulonimbus cloud or something like that. So if you just got an emitter with some noise on it. So if you want to add noise to your emitters, you can go here and change your noise scale. So if we go here, we can see that I can kind of change it. It's kind of hard to see. I have to keep restarting the sim. But yeah, so we can say like 0.5 or something. And then now we've got a nice little cloud. And then we can pause it and view it. And one of the cool things is you can go over here to your lighting and we can say, okay, let's change our lighting and view it. Or maybe we want to animate our light to rotate around this particular volume. And so we can do something like this. And so now we've got it so that we've got a little cloud and a light is going around it and it's pretty. Which in the future, I think we want to support path tracing so that you could actually have like water droplets and stuff like that instead of just this harsh smoke. So you could probably get some better cloud renders or whatever out of the tool in the future. This was just my quick take at like a cloud in the sky kind of thing. And then you can also change like your fall off and your quadratic attenuation and things like that to smooth out the volume and how it's rendered. So next we've got a stylized explosion. I woke up really early this morning. That's why I'm yawning so much. I was too excited by the launch. I had to get up at like 4 a.m. because I was so excited. So we have a stylized explosion here. So one of the things that we haven't really touched on is we have different rendering styles. So we have cartoon, which in this case we can see. And so let's go here and pause it. And we can kind of change how this cartoon thing is looking. So say that's something like that. You'll notice that it messes up the checkerboard background too. But I particularly like the Kuwahara shading. And we'll just make everything 0. And it adds like a really nice painted effect. Which I wonder if I go to like this first fireball, what it'll look like. Nope, that's the wrong thing. We'll go to fireball. And so we can go over here and go to our visualization. We'll choose Kuwahara. Yeah, so which one of the things is I don't think that flames themselves actually get merged into the Kuwahara shading just yet. Because if I do 0 on my scattering intensity, you're not going to see anything. But you can see that you can get some nice painterly, effects on your smoke here. And then we can go down and we can change some of our style parameters and see what it looks like. So yeah, so you can kind of change. I don't think that style parameter 3 works on Kuwahara. So in this case, we've got something like that. Got some cool little paint daubs or whatever. And it looks pretty cool. It's a nice cartoony filter. And we'll have some different filters in the future, which I think there's some called like Sobel and, things for like outlining and things like that. We'll have that. We'll have it in the future. So yeah, that is kind of the extent of the the presets that we have. One thing I can do, just as a quick demo to show you how you can go from a preset to something else, what I can do is maybe we'll use this, maybe this fireball moving thing right here. And like, let's say that we wanted to create like, I don't know, some dragon's breath or something for a cinematic that you might have. What we can do is we can go to our emitter, go to our position, and turn that off, turn off our radius. And then from here, what we can do is we can say, okay, first things first, we want some directional force on this thing. So now we got a directional force. Maybe we want it to be in the x-axis or something like that. And we can change this to be something like that. So we've got some cool fire going over. We'll change our position all the way to the edge over here. And so since we have a non-uniform bound from our moving thing, our moving ball of fire, it fills the volume nicely. And so from here, the next thing is, now that we've got this, maybe we want the fire to live a little bit longer. So we could probably turn down our oxygen in the fuel. We can turn down our fuel loss. We can increase our temperature gain. And as we increase the temperature gain, you can see that more fuel is going to ignite. And so now we have some cool fire. And then with that, we could actually probably increase our fuel loss so that the fire burns up quicker. And we could probably increase our oxygen in the fuel, maybe decrease it all the way. And then what we'll do is we'll just cool down the flames less so that we don't get any weird stuff happening. And then maybe we'll turn down our cooling on our smoke as well. And so now we have something that looks kind of like this. And then a dragon might be changing the direction of his breath. So maybe let's move this, something like this. Let's move this upwards a bit. So yeah, so we'll go kind of here. And then we can change our force direction. Then we can animate our force direction. So we'll go here and we'll say, let's do negative, something like that. And so we'll do that. And then we can add another key by middle clicking, and then we'll add this upwards. And so say something like this. And then we can add another one that's going down. and then another one going up and out. And so yeah, so you could just kind of go through and animate this so that it's going up and down. Is it possible to have an explosion actually start as a dot, or at the very least a small sphere? Right now the starting radius of an explosion is relatively big compared to the explosion. In your EmberGen Unreal video where you have the particles grow when being spun so that they didn't just pop in. So one thing that you can do, you can animate the radius over time. So for instance, you can have it like that. And so like I can drag this radius and kind of preview it. And so you can make it start small like that and then just grow the radius in the timeline and then immediately make it go back down. Also, if you're using particles, which I'm not sure specifically where I'm having the particles grow, but you can also change like the maximum size or minimum size of particles, and that will help you fix it a bit, I guess. Hopefully that's answering your question. So I can go to like my explosion. Like one of the ones that I used in my Unreal Explosion video is this Fireball 01, and you can see that the radius just kind of grows immediately. And so from there, it just ignites and kaboom. I mean, that's one thing that we do. And then for the flipbook that I actually generate, I waited probably to about this frame to actually start capturing. So you've got the big ball already. And then if we go to something like one of the other ones that I used in my Unreal video, which is this one. In this case, it's just a bunch of particles. They're spawning at their full size, and then they're getting smaller over time. And you can change that with this max and min shrinking value. So if it was 0, we can see that my particles are just going to be huge. Yeah, so the particle is just going to be huge in this particular case. And we've got a whole lot of density going on. But then if you change your maximum shrinking, some of the particles are going to change to smaller. And then if you change min shrinking to 1, all of your particles will shrink down to 0 over time. Hopefully that explains how it works. The best thing to do, yeah, is just to have the emitter abruptly grow and abruptly shrink. We found that's the best way to create an explosion at this time. And then you can use forces to help you out. So yeah, does anybody else have any questions? I think that's going to be the end of our little launch stream. I went through all the presets and whatnot. So yeah, feel free to ask me any more questions that you may have, and I'll be happy. Yeah, so I mentioned this earlier in the stream. They are hollow. That's because, to my knowledge, our combustion isn't computed correctly at this time. We're working on fixing that. One thing that you can do in the meantime is if you went to your emitter and then where's it at? I'm looking for it. Temperature strength. If you change your temperature strength, it won't be hollow anymore. But maybe that's just because maybe that's just because it's too bright to see that it's hollow. Which we can kind of look inside of it. Maybe it might still be hollow. But either way, hopefully that explains it. It is an issue that we are facing, and we will have a fix for it in the future. Because I don't think that emitters are properly emitting. I think that they're just emitting around the edges instead of emitting stuff from the center too. And I think that would help as well. At this time, trigger happy, we don't have a keyboard shortcut to zoom out. We have it bound to the mouse wheel. So I'm using my mouse wheel to zoom in and out. But you should be able to do a keyboard shortcut in the future. At this time, we don't have rebindable keyframes or presets or anything like that. But once we have that, you will be able to rebind your keys to to do like plus or minus or whatever to zoom in and out, which we could probably have it by default or something. And we'll probably have some keys that you can use, which I think what we'll do is like if you right click and hold W, A, S, and D, it'll be like a free cam or something like that, or left click. So we do have some plans to have more camera controls if you don't have a middle mouse scroll wheel or something like that, which let me know. Hopefully we can find some good solutions for everybody, because some people seem to be using tablets, which is unexpected. Yeah, it really, really surprises me that people are using tablets for this. I didn't even imagine that people would use a Wacom tablet for this. So at this time, mouse is your best bet. Mouse is your best bet. But hopefully we can support some tablet features in the future. We just didn't expect people to use a Wacom tablet for this kind of thing. Any other questions? If you haven't pre-ordered, support us. Send us an email at sales@jengafx.com or respond to the alpha email that we sent out. We need more pre-orders. We love pre-orders. No shame. If you like what you see and you want to export some flipbooks and support our development and help us get this done quicker, you know, the more money we got, the more team we can hire and things like that. And pre-ordering helps us grow. So yeah, if you want to see more stuff quicker, pre-order the software. You can send us an email and we will help you out. We'll hook you up. We'll hook you up with a build that can export some stuff. And if you're just wanting to wait till the beta, that's fine too. During our beta, you'll be able to export some stuff during our trial and try it out in your pipeline. But just know that we think it's ready enough to export stuff to your game, and from there, that's kind of that. So yeah, all right. Doesn't appear that you guys have any other questions. As always, go to our Discord server. If you look in our documentation or on our website, jengafx.com, you can see our Discord link. You can follow us there and post inside of EmberGen. Let us know what kind of stuff you've got. So if we go over here to EmberGen, whoop, wrong thing. So yeah, if we go over here, you can see people are talking in the EmberGen. They're showing off stuff. We've got people giving us feedback. So hop all over to the Discord server, which I can create an invite link. Let's see. What? Why is this hidden? Okay, my invite link is hidden right now. All right, but anyway, you can go to our website and find it. Yeah, so if you guys don't have any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream now. Peace out. Talk to us on Discord. Email us. Send us emails for pre-orders. We'll hook you up. Thanks for supporting us, guys. We appreciate it. Thanks for tuning into the stream. Peace out.